when internet blood sports were all the rage that winter on YouTube. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and enough people that I think are fairly reasonable have made videos criticizing this trend of internet blood sports that have been sweeping something like 5 channels that I never actually watch, maybe a few more. So I might as well say my piece about why I don't really watch them, nor will I appear on their streams if invited, and if they do invite me and it turns out to be an internet blood sports stream, I'm gonna leave. You should know that right now. Now, this is not necessarily a condemnation of the particularly drama-filled people who I will call the usual suspects for the purposes of this video, mainly because my feelings about them as individuals are not super relevant to any audience I might receive for this video. More so, their patterns of behavior are just getting a bit repetitive, and I have a prediction about where this all is going. Now, I'll admit that I mostly find them boring, mainly, which is why my channel is nothing like theirs. This is another reason why I shouldn't talk too much about their characters. I don't really know them nor care to observe them enough to form a personal opinion about many of them. However, I have learned enough to be pretty confident that I know exactly how they keep the blood sports flowing, which is what I will be speaking about in this video. First off, I'll give Roy of Very Nearly Viral credit for articulating something clearly that I hadn't put into words, though I'm not sure if he came up with this. He said that the usual suspects of the Bloodsport streams view people on YouTube not so much as actual people on YouTube, but as marks. They see individual YouTubers as potential sources of entertainment for an audience. The word mark is a really good one for this type of behavior, but that's where it ends from Roy. The rest of this video is composed of my opinions, and Roy just offered me the word mark to describe how these people view the guests of their shows. See, the word mark is useful to describe the act of dehumanizing individuals to potentially turn a profit off of them. And as far as I can tell, that's precisely what these people do. Truthfully, regardless of whether you find this stuff entertaining at the moment or not, and I know some people legitimately do, my long-term predictive analysis is that I don't think that these shows are sustainable on YouTube, and I can explain exactly why in a pretty neutral fashion. You see, people liken YouTube internet blood sports to being like Jerry Springer. And that definitely rings true to a certain degree, obviously, but there's some very big differences to keep in mind. Mainly, for one, due to the fact that this is on the internet, it cannot ever devolve into an actual fist fight or weave-ripping claw fest, so it will never be as inherently entertaining. The physical fights enacted on video were precisely why I watched Jerry Springer in school. When I was in high school, of course. I actually watched it at the time, but really because of the fights. However, when you're watching internet blood sports, there's never going to be a moment where somebody in the audience gets up to ask the question, "This question is for Jamila. I was wondering if you are really a man. You look like a dude." And then Jamila gets up and runs into the audience to try to attack the woman who asked the question. Due to the fact that it will never culminate into actual immediate physical violence that the audience can watch, the best that the usual suspects can hope for is that they can get somebody like Sargon to come onto a stream, hoping to get him to say something vaguely incriminating that people can take out of context at a later date. Yawn. That being said, the next thing to point out is that these streams are therefore dependent upon having guests like Sargon, who in many instances could easily be seen as not a guest at all, but rather a mark. Somebody that is being used by the hosts of the stream as a means to their end of generating traffic to their channels. It simply wouldn't be interesting to do internet blood sports with people who nobody has ever heard of. So they have to try to bait guests, or marks, that already have YouTube followings, so that they will come into their streams. even though most YouTubers probably don't really want to go into their streams at all. Furthermore, if you start paying close attention to how they bait people into their streams, you'll find that it's usually very dishonest and is generally based around misrepresenting what somebody said on Twitter or something, and then saying, "You can come on this stream and defend yourself, unless you're afraid." 9 times out of 10, it will be something along those lines that inspires somebody to join a stream. Sargon is obviously a wonderful mark for the usual suspects, or really any alt-writer also who wants to tell a tale that Sargon was pwned in a debate by somebody or other, simply because everybody in this corner of YouTube knows exactly who Sargon is. So when Sargon is in any form of drama, it will be legitimately entertaining for the audience. There will be views, even if it's completely non-productive. However, Sargon is only one person. He doesn't always have time for these types of streams because he actually makes content, and he's probably starting to realize that the people who host these types of streams are often just generating views for views' sake, quote mining him, and so eventually he'll probably stop going anywhere near these types of streams. And if that happens, would Sargon be alone? Of course not. While I'm a relatively small channel, I personally won't go anywhere near streaming with the usual suspects, and I don't care how many of them might say that it's just because I'm scared. What am I scared of? Being invited onto a stream in bad faith, where I will be outnumbered, where I will be repeatedly lied about, where I will have my words repeatedly twisted around to mean something that they didn't, also that somebody or other can be entertained by watching me squirm? Well, congratulations. You caught me. Yes, I'm afraid of that happening. But now that I'm aware that it does happen as basically the entire basis of certain channels, and that these people will do it to their former friends at the drop of a hat, well, at this point, I have a better sense of who and what to watch out for. That being said, I know for a fact that there are numerous YouTube personalities who feel the exact same way. And honestly, it's a bit too late for the usual suspects to say that they have better things to talk about than us, because you won't shut up about us. We might not be big channels like Sargon, but if you can get us arguing in a stream, apparently a few people actually click on the stream to watch it happen. In some cases, these usual suspects are apparently so desperate for views that they title streams with our names in them when we aren't even there. So this is what I predict is going to happen eventually, as people wise up to the usual suspects and that this is all a game to them, and figure out that it is completely dishonest. I predict that less and less people will be willing to ever show up, and they'll start to run out of marks to pick on. And then, when that happens, due to the fact that we already know that these people are complete and utter backstabbers who will turn on their own friends for views and super chat donations, as they have gone out of their way to demonstrate dozens of times over the past few months, well, eventually, the usual suspects are probably bound to turn on each other. I mean, hey, maybe they'll all still be friends in a year and all be wrong about everything. Perhaps if these people want to just totally change their format and start actually being entertaining without having to use YouTubers as marks, hoping to publicly humiliate their guests, then that's fine by me, and maybe they can pull in a lasting audience. Though, granted, I'll never be in that audience, but whatever. However, if you draw people in for the bloodsports, you'll have to keep providing bloodsports for those same people to be interested, right? So when you run out of marks and you can't find anybody new that is willing to come on your drama stream, you'll have to try to find a way to keep the blood flowing. But where will it be coming from? Thus, the most logical conclusion is that it will probably implode, as the usual suspects will attack each other like starving piranhas. As the Quartening mentioned in his video, and I had already been saying, the only real way that any show based around heated discussions can maintain itself is with good moderation from a neutral host. But I doubt that's going to happen because the people that host these things are often the worst out of the bunch. More so, regardless of my feelings about the usual suspects and hosts, it's not hard to find countless people telling them all over Twitter exactly what they think of them. And for a while, the usual suspects might think that they've found a new mark when this happens, but eventually everybody will just bore of it entirely and both refuse to go on the shows or even have the usual suspects on their streams. This is just my prediction, and obviously you can choose whether or not you want to listen to anything I have to say. But I will add just a quick bit of personal opinion about all of this. While I have not been secretive about my disapproval of this phase in YouTube, I will say that there is a silver lining. Over the past few months, I have learned of a handful of people that I once thought of as friends, or at least vague colleagues or contemporaries of a sort, that I thought I could have a positive working relationship with on this platform, who ended up being people that I simply don't want much of anything to do with. While I can't exactly thank these people for being, in some cases, completely awful people who probably have mental disorders, or simply rather immature and overconfident at this point in their lives, I can definitely say that it is a blessing in disguise to know this about these people and to be more aware of how this type of drama unfolds on YouTube. When you do YouTube, as much as it can seem that every person on YouTube that you are friendly with is your real friend, YouTube works differently than other social interactions because people have a very tangible motive for potentially turning on you and starting drama, as it can get them short-term popularity and a bit of money. It's not the first time I've encountered people like this by a long shot, but learning firsthand how it works on YouTube has been very enlightening. Honestly, I will never forget how both myself and my friends were treated during this period on YouTube. And for that, I can sort of thank the Bloodsports for teaching me this lesson. That's all.